Hi, I'm Stephen Tallamy, and in this video I'm going to make 80 seconds of 80s music for Dr. Mix using only rack mount gear from the 80s and 90s. Oh, and Jack Black.
You're so cool, and with my star we're gonna reach. Understand, I'm gonna love you till the very end. Peaches, 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 oh yeah, Peaches, 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 I love you. Mario, Luigi, and a Donkey Kong too. 1,000 troops of Koopas couldn't keep me from you. Princess Peach at the end of the line. I'll make you mine. Peaches, 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 I love you.
This really was a throwback for me, making music like it was the 80s and 90s. In fact, everything you heard there could have been sequenced using Notator on an Atari and recorded into a Tascam Portastudio. Let's take a look at the project. So if we start with the bass part, I used my Yamaha TX81Z, so an FM synth, and I'm using the famous Lately bass. Now this isn't of course the same bass that's used in the track, but I thought it would be quite a nice mix. So let's listen from the verse and then into the chorus. So for the drum machine, I've used my EMU Proteus and I've used a 303 style drum kit. So let's build that up from the kick upwards. So now the only part that was not a 303, I used a different kit, the For Real kit, to get the tom sound. And what you can see here is I've got them on different MIDI channels with one panned hard left and one panned hard right. So the tom part then bounces between those two different channels. Now that's a long way from the original track, but the original has a lot of processing going on. I think it's samples and reverse sampled, but in the context of the rest of the track, I think it's okay. Okay, so now if we listen to the piano part, this is the Korg M1 and I've chose the Magic Piano patch, which is a nice EP patch, which I think fitted quite well. So with the Korg playing the piano, the Yamaha playing the bass, and the EMU playing the drums, I was left with my Roland JV1080 to play the other parts. So I've used its multi-timbral patch, and first off we've got the brass, which is the brass section. But there's also a little bit that comes into the chorus, and I've layered the brass with the strings to get into that. And then of course the famous string melody line. which I thought deserved a little bit more 80s twinkle, so I added this Fantasia JV patch. Now that's quite subtle, let's listen to it on its own. So in the original track, just offsetting the piano is this pad sound that kind of swells. So I've added this warm pad and I've put it just off the beat so it kind of swells after the piano. Let's listen to it on its own. And if we put that with the piano, just adding that little bit of texture. And so then during the verse there's this little synthy part which I've used this dual profs patch, which I assume is some sort of sample of a Prophet, and that sounds a little like this. And so together those parts sound like this. So that's about it in terms of the MIDI track. I played everything in live, but then quantized it and fixed a few notes, particularly in the bass part where I was not the best at playing. So the only other thing to note in this project really is the audio part at the top. This is an isolated version of the vocals. I use Isotope RX to isolate those vocals. And then I've used flex time to stretch that out because the BPM of Jack Black's track Peaches is actually more around 92, and I wanted something more around 108 to fit the original sort of timing of Never Gonna Give You Up. I think it's actually halfway between the two. And then you can see I've got the video embedded. I actually had to speed that up by a little bit so that again it would track with the vocals. As you can see, I had a lot of fun making this track, and yes, I didn't record it in exactly 80 seconds, but I did keep it to 80 seconds of music, so that counts, right? I certainly couldn't have made this music without Dr. Mick's own recreation of Never Gonna Give You Up, so do check out that video here. I also extensively used the analysis of the song by 12 Tune that was recently published in this video here. If you enjoyed this video, then please do give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.